Hey Met fans, Brian here from Mets Mayhem. Last night the Mets lost to the Marlins 4-2 to fall back under 500 at 2-3 for the year. Kodai Senga made his season debut and immediately put the Mets in a 2-0 hole, giving up a leadoff double to the Marlins' Xavier Edwards, followed by a 2-run homer from Kyle Stowers. Now the Mets got one back quickly, leading off the top of the second inning by Brandon Nimmo with a line drive home run to right center field. They scored another run and evened the score at 2 on the top of the third after a Luis Angel Acuna double led off the inning. Jose Siri grounded out to second for the first out, but Francisco Lindor singled up the middle, driving in Acuna to tie the game. In the third inning, Senga found his sea legs and he struck out the side. Unfortunately for the Mets, the bats went silent the rest of the way. The Marlins took the lead in the fourth inning after Otto Lopez reached on an error by Francisco Lindor. This is Lindor's second error of the game. Unfortunately, this error came back to bite them. Senga struck out Matt Mervis, then induced Griffin Conine to ground into a force out at second. Jonah Bride walked on a 3-2 pitch, which loaded the bases. And Graham Pauley ripped a 1-0 cutter that was supposed to ride up and inside, but instead got way too much to the plate. And it was driven to left center field alley and drove in 2 runs, gave the Marlins the 4-2 lead, and that's how the game ended. The Mets tried to rally in the ninth inning off of Anthony Bender. Juan Soto led off the inning with a walk. He was erased on a force-out play as Pete Alonso grounded out to third. Brandon Nimmo followed with a ground ball up the middle, put runners on first and second, 1 out. Mets still had some life. The Marlins decided to pull Bender. They brought in Anthony Venziano. He got Mark Vientos to fly out to right field for the second out of the inning. Jesse Winker then came up, but the Marlins played their defense perfectly. They were playing a no-doubles defense. Winker hit a soft ground ball down the right field line. Unfortunately, that's where the first baseman was positioned. Matt Mervis fielded the ball, took it to first base on his own, and that was the third out and final out of the game. So the Mets fell to the Marlins 4-2. We have some other news to discuss. The Mets received an injury update on Sean Manea yesterday. Manea hasn't pitched all spring after he suffered an oblique strain in late February. The Mets officially placed Manea on the IL on March 15th. It was a 15-day IL. And the expectations was that we might see him return kind of late April. The timetable for his return has now been altered. Manea was starting to ramp up his throwing, get to full strength, and unfortunately he felt some discomfort. So he let the Mets medical staff know. They decided to get him an MRI. The MRI confirmed there was some inflammation, so the Mets immediately shut him down, and he received a PRP injection. For those unaware what a PRP injection is, that's a platelet-rich plasma injection. It's a regenerative medical treatment where a concentrated solution of platelets from the patient, so from Manea, from his own blood, it's used and it's injected directly into the injured or damaged tissue area. So in his case, it's going to be injected directly into his oblique, and it's supposed to help you, heal quicker. So unfortunately, the timeline got pushed back. We won't see Manea for a little bit later. I'd rather him come back fully healthy than come back, slightly injured and not say anything, and then it can cause a worse injury. So in Manea's case, the Mets are going to be cautious, have him rest for at least 2 weeks before starting to ramp up again. We're probably not going to see him until around Memorial Day. So last year, Manea pitched a career-high 181 2/3 regular season innings. If you combine that with his playoff innings, he's at 200 innings for the season. From the year 2023 to the 2024 season, his workload increased by 66 innings. Typically, you see a pitcher increase their workload by 30-35 innings a year. So this is, much more than that. So maybe in a weird way, this works out for the Mets. It works out for Manea. As long as the Mets can win games without him, put themselves in a good position standing-wise for when Manea returns to the team, Manea could almost be seen as an early trade deadline acquisition. And the Mets gave up nothing for him. You can look at it that way. If he comes in, by Memorial Day, he starts to get in midseason form, by July, now we have, hopefully, prime Manea like he was pitching last season, pitching for us from July into the stretch run and in the playoffs. Switching back to the series with the Marlins, Game 3 is on tap later this afternoon. Clay Holmes is taking the mound for his second start versus the Marlins' Connor Gillespie. Now, Connor's just starting to get his feet wet in the majors, and in his first start this year, he went 4 innings. He allowed 3 runs on 4 walks and 4 strikeouts. I'm really expecting the Mets to jump out early in this game. Connor's very young, very inexperienced. The Mets need to not let him get in a groove, not let him feel good, make him feel uncomfortable the whole game, put some pressure on him, and, give Clay some early runs so you can take that pressure off of him. In Clay Holmes' last start, he went 4 2/3 against the Astros. He was hurt by giving up too many free passes. I mean, he walked 4, he struck out 4, and he gave up 5 hits. Still, he limited the damage to only giving up 2 runs, but it wasn't a great start. It wasn't what we saw from him in spring training. He just wasn't sharp. And for what we need from Clay this season, he needs to pitch much better than that. So I know it's early, but this is an important game for the Mets, considering the Manea setback, and it's an important game for Clay Holmes as well. He's going to need to show that opening day was a result of some expected nerves, being put in a position he had never been in before, being the opening day starter, and that he's closer to the pitcher that we saw in spring training than we saw opening day. Now, I'm not saying he needs to go 7 or 8 innings and give up no runs, but he's going to have to be much sharper, keep the ball low in the zone, and not give up a ton of walks to this Marlins team. And with an off day tomorrow, he can go a strong 6 innings. That'll be good enough. Hand the ball off to the bullpen, let them close out the game. Hopefully he puts us in a position with a lead or leaves us in a position where we have the opportunity to take the lead and win this game. But I really think Holmes needs this game. He needs this win. The Mets need this win to take the series. Then we go into the off day tomorrow, and we prepare for the home opener at Citi Field Friday versus Toronto. So I'll be back to recap this game and provide any other additional information, especially leading up to opening day at Citi Field. But in the meantime, let's go Mets.